Hi guys and girls, I'm Obsidian Ant and this is Elite Dangerous. What you can see right in front of you is the Horsehead Nebula, and after a rather long journey I've finally arrived here behind Bernard's Loop. The Horsehead Nebula itself is really interesting as it changes in appearance so dramatically just with a few light years jump, and it truly is a very beautiful area out here. Now, it took me quite a while to arrive here. I entered the region through the Orion Nebula, as you can see here on the map. It's actually a very close-knit bunch of stars. I passed through the Orion Nebula and out the back, finding myself here at Bernard's Loop. This particular nebula is the one you can see from the core systems. It's the red nebula that's sort of horseshoe in shape. And naturally, as it's fairly large in apparent size, even from the Sol system, once you get here it is truly tremendous in size. And indeed, the red background pretty much encompasses the entire region here. You can travel for quite a few hundred light years and still find yourself with this red background. It does of course change in appearance as you move along. That right there is the Witch's Head Nebula as it appears in Gamma 1. As you move around from system to system, and in some cases it may only be a matter of a few dozen light years, the appearance of the environment can dramatically change, as you can see here. And as I'm above the galactic plane, you can actually see the galactic dust. It's much more apparent out here, or up here should I say. And you can see how it causes a lot of very dark regions to appear across the background and across the various nebulas. Even that itself is stunningly attractive. I'm not sure how apparent it is on the video, but the galactic dust that's now below me here as I travel along at multiple times the speed of light in supercruise, you can actually see yourself pass over the galactic dust, and it does indeed pass in parallax against the stars behind it. And it does give a somewhat eerie sense to the sensation of moving out here, which culminate in giving the impression that you can reach the dust layer simply by flying towards it. But I tried that, and by flying in a straight line for quite a bit of time, but ultimately didn't get any closer, or didn't seem to get any closer at least. Now what you can see here is the back of the Orion Nebula, and whilst it's red and bright from the front end, it's very dark from the back. And you can see that it's so dense and light has such difficulty passing through it that you can see it completely occludes the galactic core behind it. Not to mention causing a reduction in colours to the left hand side. You can see it's more or less black and white. And yet again providing for a massive variation in visuals out here. The journey out here was pretty involved. At this point in the game there's no route planner, so what it meant is that I had to plan ahead maybe 100 light years at a time or so, and then work my way back along the galaxy map until I came in range of my jump lines, and then I'd point a destination there that was in vaguely the correct direction of my ultimate destination. Now this did involve regularly checking ahead, because as you can see, as you get out here, some of the stars become relatively sparse, so it's very possible to find yourself at a dead end, which I did manage to do more than once, and that meant quite extensive backtracking and looking for another route. I also wanted a route that allowed me to see most of the nebulas in one go. So, as I said, I come in through the Orion Nebula, approached Bernard's Lou, went up to the Flame Nebula, and then across here to the Horsehead Nebula. I was initially unsure how close I'd be able to get to the Horsehead Nebula, as the stars thin out so much, and I was unsure if the jump range capability of my ship was able to traverse that sort of distance. Of course, there's simply no way to do a journey like this without a fuel scoop. I didn't have the best one available, but the one I've got was able to scoop 65 units a second, which, whilst that does take a while to fill the tank, it did do the job. One really pleasant feature out this way is something you actually see in the core systems, and that's how the background is actually very dark where you're close to a star, and as you get away from the star it becomes increasingly bright. And just look how that causes the nebulas to reveal themselves as you travel away from the star. There truly is a huge variation in colour and contrast out here, so for that alone it's well worth the journey. And of course you only have to turn your ship in a slightly different direction to reveal a completely different vista. There were some interviews back in the early days of development with David Braben where he said that each system would feel unique and that you'd be able to tell which part of the galaxy you were in simply by the visuals of the system. And whilst that might not be true for the core systems, it's completely true out here. You only have to jump 5 or 6 light years in one direction and it changes the whole layout of where you're at. And that's my destination, the Horsehead Nebula. But of course, just because it's all tranquil and beautiful out here doesn't mean it's all safe. There's still plenty of interdictions going on out here, and you do have to be quite careful to make sure you don't end up getting shot down. The stakes of getting shot down can be fairly high back in the core systems, especially if you've got a cargo hold full of expensive items, but out here the stakes are very high, as you can instantly find yourself backwards 1, 2, 3 or even 6,000 light years. So that's something you really need to avoid. Now, regular viewers of my series may notice that this video is more of a narration rather than a real-time play of it, and the reason for that slight format change is simply because there's so much to see out here and the distance is so vast that most of my play has simply been spent travelling from system to system, so this way of recording avoided me showing you a lot of jump sequences, which I think you would be a lot more interested in the nebula out here. Anyway, here I've finally arrived at the Horsehead Nebula, which pretty much was my ultimate destination. This is the back end of the Horsehead Nebula, the part we can see from Sol. And it is fairly dark in appearance, with quite some high contrasting reds. But it's very pretty, quite a stunning area. I did find that if you look on the galactic map at this particular part of the Horsehead Nebula, as well as about 10 light years back from where I am, the nebula does look slightly unfinished, as you can just see there. But the other side of it, which I'm about to jump to, is probably one of the best looking nebulas I've seen in the game so far. Just look at the detail on that. So, 117 light year jump. I'm about to go from one side of the nebula through to the other, so a quick jump straight through the nebula. It's probably one of the most anticipated and intense jumps I've ever made in the game, as it's one of the areas I've most wanted to see in the game. And here we go. And of course, as you come out near the sun, most of this surrounding space is occluded by the brightness and the amount of light coming from the star. But a quick bit of fuel scooping, as not all stars are fuel scoopable out here, so it's always best to top up your fuel tank to avoid becoming stranded. That's the last thing you want. And let's turn away from the sun and head toward the nebula. And let's see what it likes, see what it looks like as it reveals itself to us. As it's slowly doing now. There's an immense amount of detail apparent on this nebula through the galactic map, and quite a bit of that is apparent from this distance up close, but it also really does give you the indication of the huge scale of these nebulas. From a distance, this nebula is so billowy and wispy, and yet up close it's much more like a cloud. Just look at that. And again, that really does show you the size of these nebula, much faster in scale than a simple solar system. It's not too dissimilar to having an atmospheric feel to it, looking around here. Lovely, lovely environment. I think what I'll do is drop out of warp just up here and let you guys and girls have a bit of a look at what the area looks like as I pan around. So let's just have a brief look. So yeah, very, very much like clouds. And yeah, a very, very worthwhile journey to come out here and see all this. Alright, now I'm going to do one more jump for this video and see this nebula from a distance where it's at its truly best. As always, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the rather beautiful sights out here. It really is an amazing place. I'll catch you guys and girls next time. This has been Obsidian Ant, signing off.